You know, that's not a question for me to answer. I think it is appropriate to, that the legislature asked the U.S. Attorney to look into this. They will make that determination. I do think there are a lot of red flags here. A couple that I would point out, you know, the lack of any standards, the timing, the sheer amount of the money, the correlation between who gives and who receives work. But that's for the Attorney General, the U.S. Attorney to look into. My job as a candidate is to tell you how I'm going to clean it up and how I'm going to fix it. And I believe these 5 steps will make a dramatic improvement. Right now, I submit we're one of the worst in the country. I mean, the quote from the Manhattan Institute, now you all may know this, that is a very conservative place. Their quote that this looks very shady, the timing looks bad. We are now on the list around the country of a state that looks like pay-to-play is going on. And the reason these 5 steps are so important is I want to get us at the top of the list. And I want to make sure, when we bring a case protecting our pension fund, I want every judge and I want every member of our pension board and every pensioner to know that we're bringing it because it's a case that makes sense and we get the best lawyers on it. I don't want them thinking what they're thinking now. Is this just a way for the Attorney General to go raise funds? That really undermines the credibility. So they'll look into that. These 5 steps are my commitment to clean it up.
Dave, this is something that seems to come up every Attorney General election. It comes up with every Treasurer election. Isn't the answer here just to prohibit these contributions in the first place?
First of all, I would disagree with your first assumption. And I worry that people will think what you're thinking. The level of what we're seeing here is unlike any other. The amount of money, the same day, the emails that show that the Attorney General himself is, you know, divvying up work, the correlation, and most importantly, the lack of any standards. This is not what we've seen before. This is much deeper, much more problematic. I'm not here saying that lawyers shouldn't give to people running for Attorney General. I don't think that's realistic. I think that's overbroad. There may be things that the legislature should look at to avoid people circumventing certain rules. The onus is not there. The onus is on the office holder, the Attorney General, to show a process and to run a process that shows no matter who gave, you know, outside this period in particular, but no matter who gave whenever, that the process of deciding is totally independent of who gave. Now, I have a theory on that, and you know, I think I'll be proven right. If once the Attorney General lays out a process, that it doesn't matter who gives, in terms of who gets work, the amount of money we're seeing will go way down. It will be a lot less. You know, the 6-figure checks, the $120,000 contributions, those are going to dry up in order to have a clean process. So I think the problem is not the dollars. And there are a lot of lawyers and a lot of law firms around the state, and some represent universities, and some I don't think that's the answer. The answer is make the process clear that it doesn't matter where it comes from. Make the law, you know, I think this is a good thing for law firms, because if I'm a law firm, I want to do work because I'm the best at this. Because I'm good at it. Not because I'm ponying up 6 figures to the AG, and even if I'm not good, I get the work. The only people who will be threatened by what I propose are the ones who are getting the work, not because they're good, but because they give them a lot of money. And I don't want them working for the AG's office. So I think once you make it clear that the decisions are completely independent through a process like this, I think the dollars coming in are actually not a problem.
Are there any firms there's 27 firms on the list, 12 of them from Ohio. Are you saying that any of them are not up to the task of doing these lawsuits?
I'm not going to make that assessment today. I'll say it this way. When I do my process, the answer will be every single one of them disqualified. But I'm not going to make that assessment today. I will say some of them were rejected one year and then picked the next. So at some point they were told they weren't good enough, and then after some generous contributions they were then picked. So there was an assessment in 2011 that some of them were qualified, and without changing one single thing, they then were picked the next year. So someone thought they weren't, but in terms of my presentation today, I'm not going to say that. And some of them are among the best firms in the country. Let's say that. I mean, some of them are very good. They do this all over the place. Again, my job is to just clean up the process so there's never a doubt that whoever they are, wherever they're from, they're there because they're good at this and not because they pony up a whole lot of money.
Why not make this independent panel the actual decision-making body? Why keep the AG in this?
Because the AG, by the Constitution, is the top lawyer of the state and represents these funds, and I think that would be a mistake. I think that in the end, I don't think you give away being the top lawyer of the state. But I do think you want to be informed by the best stakeholders, which is what this panel would do, and again, provide enough of a paper trail that it's guiding the decision. People can see the decision, and if you go off track from those recommendations, you must have a good reason. You better have a good reason for it. But I still think you keep it in the hands of the Attorney General.
Dave, how much of this is, as I recall from 2010, Mr. DeWine had done himself contribution whole, I think, in bonus campaign, as I recall, $2 million. How much of this is related, do you think, to trying to pay past debt?
Right. I don't want to speculate too much. I mean, it's a lot of debt. And most of it's now been paid back. And we'll simply say it's been a frenzy of activity from the very firms and a few others that we're talking about. And it looks like that drove 2.5, 3 years of very active fundraising. But, he needs to answer that question. I'm not going to speculate, but I do think common sense tells you that there's some connection between this real energy to raise money and the fact that I think it's now, most of that very large loan. I do disagree with Mr. Bourne. I think that's not a small amount of money. It's a large amount of money to most people, and I think that there's clearly was some frenzy to pay back what was an enormous, maybe unprecedented loan in the state of Ohio. And it very well could have contributed to the level of fundraising we're seeing from these firms.
Get back to this panel. It seems that there's already currently some sort of review panel that Attorney General DeWine uses to select these firms. How would yours be different?
It would meet. We think the second year didn't even meet. I think the first year maybe had 2 meetings. Every single one of the panels from the AG staff. That's not independent. It would have clear standards. We don't think that exists. It would provide written recommendations. That didn't happen. It would be, it would be transparent. It would represent the stakeholders, not just lawyers who work for the AG. It would represent the firefighters and police officers and retired employees who really do care that this is done the right way. I had a teacher the other day bring this up to me and say, how can we be sure that our pension is well represented when this is what's happening? Great question. So it would be altogether different from a panel that looks like it's on paper in reference to RFPs, but actually it looks like they had a very small process in 1 year, and the next year they didn't even have one. So like I said, first it would meet, and then it would do all these other things that are completely different from what happened the last couple of years.
So you see a value in keeping the advisory panel of firms?
I do. I think that's a good question, and it's something that's debated around the country. There are 2 ways you could do it. One is you simply have lawyers you randomly pick for different cases, and that's sort of how it's been done in the past. I'd rather do a pre-qualification, and I think it is good to have a set of people who are who can be advisors, who aren't guaranteed that they'll be the ones picked, but who have a stake in thinking about Ohio's pension fund beyond just being a lawyer everywhere in the country, every once in a while sending an email to the AG saying, here's a case. So I think there is a positive to it. But I also think that it's an enormous opportunity. And I saw in the AP forum last week, I saw the Attorney General really downplay the importance of this panel. Well, they don't always get to bring cases, and that's what he said. For these law firms, this is an enormous opportunity. This is the door to get into representing one of the largest clients, if you're in this line of work, you will ever have in the country. It's a game changer, and if you get on one of these cases, the fees are astronomical, and they know that. So when I saw him say, well, they don't get to bring case, people are knocking down the door in some ways, unfortunately, through contributions to get onto this thing. And I think it's important to have it, but knowing that there is this temptation to get on in the wrong way, I think we have to be very public and transparent about a process that makes sure you're on here because you're good at this, You're on here because you got a track record of being good at it, or you performed well for Ohio in the past, and that's why you're on it, and it's not because you're a big donor to some campaign or to the party. But I think, with that said, I do think it's a structure that makes more sense than the alternative. By the way, the alternative is also susceptible to, it actually could be worse, susceptible to the same kind of problem, where law firms do the same thing and then you pick them individually for a particular case. So I don't think even getting rid of the panel necessarily solves it. I think having a panel with a process with integrity is actually your best approach. And by the way, I've talked to people who are experts in this around the country about if you have a panel, how to do it the right way, how to make it transparent, how to have this independence. And that's some of this comes from best practice around the country for people to do it